but I don't know him.
You don't know him. Okay. So just another pearl.
He's another pearl. How lovely. Thank you for joining me today. Where are you?
I'm in Tuscany.
Oh, okay, great. So we're on the same time zone.
It's on the same level.
Yeah.
Where in Spain are you?
In Ibiza.
Ibiza. Oh,
Yeah.
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 Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
It's lovely. It's a nice, gentle countryside living, and I'm very happy being here.
Yes, I would think so. It's one of the most beautiful spots in Europe, in the world, actually.
Yeah, it really is. And we have the same birthday, you and I. I checked you
Really?
out. Yes, June, Gemini. Yes.
June.
So Ervin, you and I have the same birthday.
What, on the 12th? Yes.
Yes, on the June.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'd like to join you on your year.
Let's fix it. We can do anything, I think. So I'm just going to make sure the tech is all ready for us to go. And I understand we have.
I'll just bring in a chair to lean on.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Great.
You see, when I read and write, then I sit a little bit lower on a chair where you lean on your knees, actually, you know.
Yeah.
But then it's also tiring after a while. So I either stand up or sit a little bit higher.
It's a good idea.
So fine.
Standing up. I've yet to master standing up and writing. I'm going to try it out because it sounds really good.
Yes, I think one must change position a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about the program that you have and your network. I mean, what are the goals?
Yes. So I'm represented by Bill. I'm an author of books. I'm just doing a new book on my near-death experience when I lost my mind and went up and came back down, and I come back with a different perspective. So I've been interviewing all sorts of people like Greg Braden and all sorts of people in the world of consciousness is my area. I'm very interested in it. And I'm working with a scientist from Cambridge University on consciousness and awareness. And we're looking at new research in that area. So it's very exciting. So if I may, I'll start recording and then I will... We've got about half an hour together, I think, or just under half an hour. Super.
Yes.
Thank you. So I have great pleasure, Ervin, to welcome you today. I'm so looking forward to our chat about your new book, The Upshift, Ervin Laszlo. It's a Wiser Living on Planet Earth book, a handbook of urgent action, a foreword by Greg Braden, who says that Ervin offers a roadmap for liberation from suffering that satisfies our deepest yearnings. It's both spiritual and scientific at the same time. Oh, that's Deepak Chopra saying this. Marianne Williamson said, The Upshift. In this book, Ervin articulates how to solve our biggest challenges. And despite our challenges, there are reasons for positivity and hope. If you are looking for hope, for a way out of our present situation, for real solutions, and for crystal clarity in how to apply them right now, read The Upshift by Ervin Laszlo immediately, says Neil Donald Walsh. Ervin here offers us a blueprint for evolution and how to achieve our highest levels of individual and collective creativity. Ervin, over to you and welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, it's wonderful, Susie, to be with you. Yes, let's speak about these things. I think they're very important.
Absolutely. If you talk about we're at the point of a tipping point at this time. We've all been through a very uncomfortable pandemic couple of years. It feels like the world is topsy-turvy. It feels like we need to take some action. What did you mean when you talked about a tipping point?
Well, I mean, it's a point that is unsustainable in itself. It will move one way or another. It will be resolved one way or another. So basically, it's a critical point. It's also known as a chaos point, because a point which is complex, there are many possibilities, but it's not among the possibilities. There isn't one that says stay the way you are. You cannot stay the way you are.
Yeah.
And I use the term shift as in moving from this point. You are shift one way or another.
Yeah.
You can shift up or shift down. I think if you would shift back to where we have been trying to recreate the kind of world that we have left, that we have passed into these global crisis points, and if you start to move back to that, that would turn out to be a downshift.
Yeah.
Because it's unsustainable, it's crisis prone, and it would be a very stupid way to proceed. The wise way, I maintain, is the wise way to live on this earth, is to move forward in a way that we recognize that we are part of each other, part of a larger whole, nature, the universe even, certainly terrestrial nature, the planet is the mother to which we belong. And we move forward by feeling that we are part of it and respecting the limits and the possibilities. At the same time, striving for the possibilities of living on Earth, of thriving even on Earth. It's all really possible if we just wake up and become conscious of who we are and how is the best way to move forward.
And it is I found it a very optimistic book and a very practical book. You drive very quick, it's beautifully organized and segmented, and you move through from spirituality to science to the world and our individual and collective responsibilities. And you're quite practical in helping people work out how they can help recover the situation.
Well, you know, Susie, there are really two parts, and the two parts have each have their own name, and they describe what this is about. Part one is describing the current situation, describing basically that tipping point, or what in system scientists we call a bifurcation point, when the evolutionary trajectory of a system, any kind of a system, complex system, changes. It doesn't move on the way it has been. Something else is happening. So that's part one. Part two is really try to be helpful to the individual, to the person. The person asks, okay, so here we are at the critical point. We could move forward in a good way. How can I be part of that movement to move forward? So part two is really a help to the individual. What can you do, the reader, and anybody who is a conscious human being on this planet? What can you do to be part of the solution and no longer part of the problem?
And it is very practical. It does guide people on how these steps, what steps you can take to have a positive impact and make a positive change in the world.
Indeed, and starting with the premise of Gandhi, who said, be the change that you want to see in the world. You know, how the individual wants to ask, how can I make others, live better? Actually, how can you live better also? Yeah. And I'm now starting what I call a movement, where I'm asking people to pledge how they see a wiser living on Earth, So that's the continuation of the book. It's not just reading, it's also participating, it's acting.
Many people, I think, want to mobilize and see a change, but they feel as individuals quite powerless. Do you think that's changing?
I think it's changing to the extent that we live in an extremely vulnerable, critical world. As we speak now, there is a critical process going on in Eastern Europe, and we don't see as the consequences, but we know that this entire military political system is vulnerable to change. It can be upset It can be brought to catastrophic boiling point, and hopefully it can defend itself. But we see that all elements, the ecology, the economy, the social system, they are all vulnerable equilibria that maintain themselves so that they can continue to function together, but they can be upset. We are in a critical point where we are interfering with the natural order, we're interfering with the social order, and we are not paying too much attention to the consequences, just pursuing our individual goals, our local goals, national goals, perhaps business goals, and sometimes military goals. And then this kind of ignorance of the consequences, neglect of the consequences could be catastrophic. So we have to get a broader, deeper view encompassing the whole system in which life on Earth is a part, is a component of that. We are not a mechanical system. We are not something outside of nature. We are part of this process of a highly tuned equilibrium, a delicate and vulnerable equilibrium, which is the substance of living on Earth, or the substance of this system that we call humanity, which is part of the system of life.
And you talk about we must question irresponsible practices that go on. War is a good example. Having dangerous weapons that are more dangerous than the things that they are there to protect, for example, was a good one, I thought.
We discover this, I hope not too much on our own flesh and blood, but I think it's becoming obvious. We are, to say playing with fire is an understatement of the word. We are playing with our very destiny, destiny of higher forms of life on Earth. We are playing with it irresponsibly.
So this is a very black and white, quite sciencey, and also very practical and accessible book for people to get into. And you argue, you come from, you're a systems guy, you're a philosopher and author and a systems scientist, and is very much driven by looking at systems and looking at how we govern ourselves, self-governance and of societies. How is that going to work? This seems to me a very important question of our time right now.
Well, we have got to grow up in the sense that we have to become aware of these connections, of the larger background or framework for our existence. We don't live outside of nature, don't live above nature. We have put ourselves above nature with the inventions in technology, with the chemistry, of creating different kinds of molecules for living and subsistence, and for eating, increasing the synthetic kind of foods and possibilities. Maybe even the virus is a consequence of our bringing into the food chain a virus that didn't belong there, that was elsewhere, but we are interfering with this equilibrium, and sometimes we're liberating elements that are really should not be allowed to float freely, certainly not to be injected into the vulnerable, delicate equilibrium, which is the system of life on Earth. So it's time to wake up in that sense and recognize that we have got to go back, as a good saying is, go back to the source.
Yes.
Recognize that the evolution of life is part of the evolution in the universe.
Yes.
And we are part of the evolution of life. So ultimately, we are part of the evolution in the universe. That's a big lesson. It's not, the universe is not eternal. According to latest cosmologists, it was born in the aftermath of the Big Bang 13.7 or 8 billion years ago. And it's been moving, it's been evolving, changing, articulating ever since. It was born in a total chaos, the chaos of the aftermath of the Big Bang, a condition in which there's nothing stable. Since then, it has been organizing itself, becoming more and more coherent. We are part of this coherence generating universe. And if we don't take conscious part of it, it's our loss. The universe will go on even without humanity in it. but life on Earth would suffer. And it is in a way, our moral responsibility, even our cosmic duty, to realize that we are part of that larger system of evolution in which we have to align, with which we have to align for our own good and for the good of all life on this planet.
And what about new developments in understanding consciousness? And also you talk about near-death experience in your book, which I've experienced in my own life, how my consciousness changed when I left my body and saw a bigger picture, rather than the individual picture I see day by day in my everyday life, just getting a wider band of understanding about what being a human is. What do you say about the...
Well, I'm saying that those people who have, like yourself, who have had a near-death experience, they can appreciate and approach and decode these wider connections, because you have experienced life, consciousness beyond the sensory world. The same as people who are deeply meditating, astronauts who have traveled outside of this Earth and see Earth from a distance and see this blue-green planet floating in space as being their home. But we can't all, and we shouldn't be expected to all have near-death experiences. And we can't all be astronauts. We could all meditate, and we could try to approach this experience with the experience of art and beauty and significance, approach it through the feeling of love and connection between us. So I'm saying near-death experience was certainly one of the channels, one of the vehicles of getting ourselves to this deeper understanding of the nature of life and the nature of consciousness. Let me just add in this connection that I'm describing the new picture of the physical universe, of the living universe, and also of consciousness. By new picture, I mean the new understanding, the new paradigm, if you like. And I'm contrasting in this book in quite some detail, I mean several tens of pages, the old understanding of consciousness, which is really like a product or a byproduct of the working of neurons in the brain, with the newer understanding, with the upgraded understanding that consciousness as being something that exists in the world, which is a one consciousness, which is, you call it a divine consciousness, which great physicist Erwin Schrödinger said that there is only one consciousness. You can't describe consciousness in the plural. Many people said that. In the final analysis, even Einstein said that there is only one mind, one consciousness, and we participate in it. So I'm claiming that in the new understanding, consciousness is a natural phenomenon. It is as natural as energy. It is more fundamental than matter. Matter as a kind of a dead stuff is an illusion. There's nothing like that in the world, really. They're only dynamic processes based on vibration, based on interaction, based on complexity and coherence. So I think our understanding of consciousness as a cosmic phenomenon is fundamental, because then we say our consciousness is a reflection, is a projection, is perhaps a part of the hologram, which is the universe, a holographic conscious universe, of which the projections each carry the whole. As you know, the hologram, every part carries the whole information on the whole. So if this universe, which serious physicists are claiming it is really a hologram, every element of it carries the system as a whole, and every element carries the consciousness, which is underlying this and dominating, if you like, this whole seemingly material universe, which is actually a highly spiritual, deeply spiritual universe. Consciousness is prior. I'm not alone in saying that now. Major scientists, in fact, the majority of leading theoretical scientists agree with that now. Consciousness is not an epiphenomenon, it's a basic phenomenon. And we are an element of it. We can understand consciousness by allowing it to come forth to come into our awareness. We can do that if we follow, for example, the route of meditation, the route of Buddhism. All the Eastern sciences point to that route, or are undergoing these unusual experiences, such as the deeply aesthetic experience, the experience of nature. And if that's our lot in life, then also the near-death experience, as you yourself has experienced it.
And what would you, when you were writing your book, what did you want people to what's the takeaway you wanted your readers to have from reading this brilliant book, which touches so many different areas? It's very vast.
I had in mind all along, which I'm now articulating.
Mm.
As it happens, if all goes well, tomorrow, I'm going to send out to all the people that I know what I call a call for a pledge to wiser living on Earth. I call it that.
Mm-hmm.
I call on people to think what they consider a wiser living that is aligned with evolution on this Earth, in the universe, and it's part of the solution and not part of the problem. And I had in mind that people who read this book will want to ask, how can I join others to become a conscious and positive element of this tremendous evolutionary change, which could be an evolutionary upshift, in showing how it could become a shift to a brighter world, to a more humanistic, more sustainable world. How can I be a part of it? I say, join this movement, join the Upshift movement. The call for this is going out, if all goes well, as I said, tomorrow, and it will stay on the web also for many weeks or months. I hope to bring together conscious people, ethical people, who are willing to look in onto themselves and say, what do I think is truly a wiser way of living on Earth? Not the way we are living today, like the way most people live today, which is unsustainable and crisis generating. You see now we have a military political crisis, but we have had ecological crisis, we have the climate crisis, we have this human economical disparateness crisis, a refugee crisis. We have all these natural crises where we just went through. Hopefully we're coming through now, a health crisis, a virus crisis. So we have got to create a better world. How to move forward in that means look at yourself. What is your idea of wiser, better living? Try to pledge that and then join together with others. The Upshift movement is trying to call on people to pledge their wiser living idea to be really realized in collaboration with each other. So let's see how this movement develops. I hope people will respond to it. I hope that people who listen to you on this program and to see this also will ask, how can I join? And the answer will be very shortly on the web by joining the Upshift movement. And I'm describing what is the Upshift movement and also how you can join it.
And we'll put in the episode notes the details of the web address and how you can contact and get involved with this.
Indeed.
So it just feels a very practical, it feels like you have an optimistic angle on being able to, for us to dig ourselves out of this leaky boat. I think you used a wonderful boat analogy, which is, our boat, we're all in the same boat, we've discovered from the pandemic. And that boat we've discovered also is leaking fast and we need to do something. Are you optimistic?
I am possibilistic.
Right.
I think we have a chance.
Right.
It's a unique historical chance.
As long as we take action and do something and don't just sit back.
And the big push getting us out of the complacency of the dead inertia of the historical past, that has been delivered, fortunately. But let's hope that it doesn't call for major sacrifices on the human level. That it doesn't come for a world war, that it doesn't call for an extinction of higher forms of species. Notice you're talking about the sixth global extinction on Earth. 60% of the higher forms of the forms of life actually on Earth have disappeared in the last 40 years. the next 20 years, it may be another 20% will disappear. And we don't know how humanity will survive and thrive in a world in which so cleaned out of all other forms of life and so becomes so sterile and so poor, actually. So if you don't want to become a part of this extinction, which is going on, then we have to call on our consciousness, call on our understanding of who we are, who we can be, and do something about it. It can be done. We have to wake up.
Yeah. And I think this situation that we've experienced in the world globally over the last couple of years has shown people the power of how things can change fast for good and for bad, and that we can make dramatic, fast changes if we have to. And it looks like now we really have to. And it's books like yours. This to me is one of those really important books that we'll look back and with some perspective and see as a crucial arrival of very important information right on time that we have to address, and to pull people into a stage of feeling like we can do some positive things for this world, we can make a difference. And when we get together, we have great power to create good, positive change in the world. And we need to do
Susie, I've been talking about these things for maybe 20, 30 years, at least since the year 2000. First book in 2001 published called the Mega Shift. And then came 9/11, right on top of it after it was published. And then we were told, if we don't are with us, then you're against us. And the book was taken out of circulation.
Oh.
But I've started, saying this already 22 years ago, actually. And now it turns out that what I've been saying becomes really now actual, becomes active, becomes relevant to the world. It's not just theory. Now it turns out that we either take on this challenge or the consequences are unforeseeable, but not good. So I'm saying them again. I'm putting it together, putting it in context. I'm not surprised that we're at this point. We have reached this point faster than I thought we would.
Yeah.
And we are moving forward with tremendous steps. Now moving on top of the ecological crisis and the health crisis, we are now moving into a political military crisis. Hopefully we can say in a few words, a few days, few weeks, and perhaps not much longer, that at least that storm could be diffused. But the situation is not going to be stable, ever going to be stable until we think in the same narrow, selfish, self-centered way. We've got to change the way we think, change our mind. A mindset change, I'm saying in this book, is absolutely essential.
Change in mindset. And I think people are ready for change, ready for a mindset change. They've seen a very ugly side of what happens when things get out of control in the world, and it has affected every human being in a big way. So
I lived through as a child. I was 12 years old when the Second World War came to an end. I was living in Budapest. And the last year, I lived in a war situation when the Nazi regime, Hitler's army, surrounded already Hungary, invaded Hungary. And we were fighting the Russian forces, which at that time were liberating forces, really trying to get us out of the Nazi regime. But I know that what a war situation can be like. Even though I was only 12 years old at the time, I remember that feeling of being constantly threatened by bombs that's falling from the sky, by groups of soldiers coming and lining people up and shooting them, and they fall into the Danube and disappear. I mean, I know what a wartime situation is, and God forbid that we ever get close to anything like that again.
Indeed.
We know that. I know that we are vulnerable. The Hitler syndrome can occur again and again unless we really come together and we make sure that we can live peacefully together with understanding that we are one, and that oneness is part of the evolution of life on the planet.
We are one. And it's a very important moment in time right now to lean in and for all of us to take responsibility in our own way for creating a better world and making a safer world for us and our future children. It's an incredibly important time, and you have written such an incredibly important book right now. So thank you very much. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I recommend for anybody who feels this aspect of we need to take some action, to read the Upshift, to get involved in the movement that is being led here, and let's make some positive changes in this world.
Thank you, Susie, for speaking to me about this and speaking about these problems and about our possibilities.
Yes.
I think it's the main idea that, yes,
yes,
it has now become possible to change.
We have potential.
As Margaret Mead said, that even a small group of people can now make a major change in the world. Today, we can.
Today, we can, and we need to do that. And thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I will encourage everyone I know to buy this book, and we will really encourage a joining for this movement, which is very, very important in the world right now. So big thank you to you.
Thank you, Susie, for your concern and for your participation.
Thank you. Lovely.